Hello. The topic that we have today is very interesting. It is about adjectives. But before we start our lesson or the core part of our lesson, let us review a little bit. Look at the first sentence. Breaks cause accidents. You have the subject breaks, and then you have the transitive verb cause. Breaks cause what? Accidents. Accidents is the direct subject. Okay? But this sentence is not completely true. Breaks cause accidents. No, we need to be more accurate, okay? And for that, we add an adjective to the noun breaks. So we say poor breaks. We're talking about poor breaks, okay? And what do? They cause what? Accidents, okay? And here you have another adjective, many accidents. Now I have a better idea. Poor breaks cause many accidents. Words that modify nouns and pronouns are called adjectives, okay? So what is the function of an adjective? What is the purpose of an adjective? An adjective makes the meaning of a noun or pronoun more exact by telling what kind, which one or which ones, and how many. In other words, adjectives answer the questions what kind, which ones, or how many. Let us see this a little bit more in detail. Okay, let us continue talking about adjectives. Remember, adjectives identify the adjective that tells what kind. Here you have three choices. These rows, white rows, three rows. And you have three adjectives. These, wide, and three. Now, which is the one that tells what kind? These? No. Wide? What kind of rows? Wide. That's the answer, okay? And three rows? No. Look at this. Identify the adjective that tells which one? Comfortable chair? No, that is telling you what kind of chair. One chair? No, that is telling you how many. It is only one. This chair? Okay. That is, this is answering the question, which one? Okay, and here we have one more. Identify the adjective that tells how many. Modern houses? No, modern is telling you what kind. These houses? No, it is telling you which ones. We're talking about these ones. Several houses? Yes, okay. In that case, several is answering the question, how many? Okay, let us continue. Now, this sentence contains three nouns. Look at the sentence. 3 students received perfect scores on this test. Can you identify the nouns? Yes, I am sure you can identify them. Okay, you have students, scores, and test. 3 nouns. Now, this sentence contains 3 nouns. You already know that. Now the question is, how many adjectives does this sentence contain? Noun, students. Adjective? 3. Scores, that is a noun. Adjective? Perfect. Test is the noun. Adjective? This. Okay? Yes, you were right. There are 3 adjectives. 3, perfect, and this. That is the answer. Now, another question. What is the common position of adjectives? Look at the adjectives. 3, students. Perfect, scores. This, test. What is the common position of adjectives? And you're right. Adjectives are placed before the noun they modify or identify. That is the general rule. But listen to this. Besides coming right before the nouns they modify, adjectives are sometimes found in another position. Look at the first sentence. The car is blue. What is blue doing? It is describing car. Okay, so blue is an adjective. Why is it after the noun and not before? The answer is because in between you have a special verb. One of the most special verbs in English, and that is the verb be. So, and remember that be is a linking verb. So, in other words, it is possible to find the adjective after the noun if you have a linking verb. Look at the other sentence. The eggs are fresh. What is fresh? The eggs, okay? Fresh is describing eggs. Why do you have a fresh after the noun and not before? Answer? Because we have in between a linking verb. The most famous linking verb, the verb be. So you have the eggs are fresh. Question, what is an adjective? Answer? It is a word, group of words, which modify a noun. Yes, you're right. Second question, what is the common position of an adjective? Yes, you're right. It is before the noun. It is modifying. Third question, what is the exception to this rule, or one exception to this rule? Yes, when you have a linking verb. Question number 4, what is a clause? What is a clause? It is a group of words with subject and verb, but without meaning, complete meaning. Okay, you're right. Now let us go to question number 5. What is the name of the clause that substitutes a noun? Okay, name of the clause that substitutes a noun. That is a noun clause. Okay. What are the common positions and functions of noun clauses? Number 1, subject at the beginning. Number 2, what is the second position of a noun clause? It is possible to find it after an action verb, okay? After a transitive verb as the object of the verb. And the third one? The third one. Now I remember. This position has to do with linking verbs, okay? So you have a complement, okay? It is a subject complement, and it is after a linking verb, okay? And the last question, what would be the name of the clause that has the same function of an adjective? Okay, the clause that has the same function of a noun is a noun clause. The clause that has the same function of an adjective is an adjective clause. Yes, you're right. Okay, now look at this sentence. They met a psychologist woman. This is a simple sentence. You have the subject they, and then you have the transitive verb met. They met who? Woman. What is woman? That is the direct object, okay? But it is not any kind of woman. This woman is special. She is a psychologist. So you have the noun woman, and before the noun, you have the adjective. Okay, now let us study this chart that we have here. This is a complex sentence. Look at this. They met a woman who is a psychologist. Why do I say it is complex? Because the sentence has a main clause and an adjective clause. When a sentence has a main clause and a noun clause or an adjective clause, these sentences are called complex. Let us look at the main clause. They met a woman. Now imagine I tell you, they met a woman. What would you say? What woman are you talking about? Or which woman are you talking about? Because there isn't enough information. So I had to describe the woman so you understand me better. Then I may say, they met a woman who is a psychologist. Okay? As you can see, who is a psychologist is describing the noun woman. Since this clause is modifying a noun, this is an adjective clause, okay? But remember, Adjectives are generally found before the noun. When is it that they are found after the noun? When you have a linking verb or when you have an adjective clause. One special characteristic of adjective clauses is that they go after the noun they modify. I'm going to ask you a question. Is it possible to find an adjective clause at the beginning of a sentence? What do you think? Is it possible to have an adjective clause at the beginning of a sentence? And the answer is no, never. Why? Because the position of an adjective clause is after a noun. Okay? So a sentence cannot start with an adjective clause because there must be before a noun. Okay? Now let us see the other woman. They met, the other sentence. They met a woman who teaches psychology. They met a woman. Who are you talking about? What woman are you talking about? A woman who teaches psychology. Okay? So what is it? It is an adjective clause. What is the beginning of an adjective clause? It is called relative pronoun. So the relative pronoun is the beginning of the adjective clause. Let us continue with our lesson. Here you have a very similar sentences. They met a woman who teaches psychology. I have read or I've read everything that discusses her work. The relative pronoun can be who or that. Question: is who and that part of the adjective clause? Answer: yes. The relative pronoun is part of the adjective clause. That is the beginning of the adjective clause. A characteristic of an adjective clause: it goes after the noun or pronoun being modified. Okay? Now let us continue with this. Generally, well, you already know something. The adjective clause goes after a noun. And you can find the adjective clause at the end of the sentence. Look at this. They met a woman who teaches psychology. I have read everything that discusses her work. So the adjective clause is at the end of the sentence. Sometimes you can find it in the middle. Look at this. The main clause is this. The woman is also a writer. Okay? The woman is the subject. And here you have the complement. But you know that the adjective clause must be after the noun being modified. If I place the adjective clause here, who teaches psychology, it means it is modifying woman. What happens if I write or I mention the adjective clause at the end? And then I have, the woman is also a writer who teaches psychology. Then who teaches psychology is modifying the noun writer. And that is something that I do not want to express. I want to express that the woman teaches psychology. So what do? I place the adjective clause in the middle of the sentence after the noun it is modified. Okay? I'm going to ask you the question again. Is it possible to find an adjective clause at the beginning of the sentence? At the beginning of a sentence, the answer is no, because you need first a noun to be modified. Okay? Now let us continue. Look at the other sentence. Everything that she says is interesting. Why is the adjective clause in the middle? Because it is modifying everything. It cannot be at the end modifying interesting, because in that case, the clause would be modifying interesting, and that is not possible. Okay? An adjective clause cannot modify another adjective. Okay? An adjective clause modifies a noun or pronoun, and the adjective clause is after the noun or pronoun. Okay, I hope that is clear. Let us continue with this. Sometimes the relative pronouns who, which, that work as the subject of the clause. Look at this. I have a friend. What is that? That is the main clause, okay? And friend is a person. After the noun friend, what do I have? Who loves to talk. That is an adjective clause, okay? Remember that a clause has a subject and verb, and it doesn't have complete meaning. This is the clause, who loves to talk. What is the verb? It is loves, okay? And the subject? The subject is who. In this example, the relative pronoun who is the subject of the clause, okay? Listen to this. I have a friend who loves to talk. If you're talking about a person, you use who. If you don't like who talking about people, you can use that. So you may say, I have friends that love to talk. If you are dealing with things, you may use which or you may use that. Listen to this. This is a book which is useful. If you don't like which, you can use that, okay? These are books that are useful. So, what is the rule? Talking about people, use who. Talking about things, you use which. If you don't want to complicate your life, use that all the time, and then that would be safe, okay? But I guess that sometimes it is better to use who with people and which with things. But that will do. Don't worry about it. Now, let us continue. Sometimes the relative pronouns are not subjects. They are objects. Question, where do you find an object? Yes, you're right. After a verb, okay? And sometimes after a preposition. So if you're talking about persons, remember you use which, you use who or whom. If you're talking about things, you use which. If you don't remember, you can use that, or if you prefer that, then you can use it. And sometimes it is possible to omit the relative pronoun, okay? Now, let us see the sentence that we have here. This is the doctor whom we consulted, okay? Remember that we consulted the doctor. This is the doctor who or whom we consulted. What is more formal, who or whom? Answer, whom, okay? It is more formal. If you don't want to use who or whom, then use that. Remember, it is safer. This is the doctor that we consulted. Now, look at the clause, okay? The clause is that we consulted, whom or whom we consulted. What is the subject of the clause? It is we, okay? And what is the function of who? It is introduced in the adjective clause. Is it possible to omit who or that? And the answer is yes. Look at this, no pronoun. You can omit it. Why? Because we already have a subject, and the subject is we. So it sounds good to say, this is the doctor we consulted. Look at the other sentence in which we are talking about things. This is the test which he gave us. This is the test that he gave us. Or we can omit it, and then we may say, this is the test he gave us. Okay? This is the test he gave us. Why? Is it possible to omit which or that? Because we already have a subject in the adjective clause. Look at the sentence that we have here. I have a friend who loves to talk. What is the adjective clause? Who loves to talk. What is the verb of the clause? It is loves. What is the subject of the clause? It is who. Is it possible to omit who? May I say, I have a friend loves to talk? Nope, it is not possible to omit it. Why? Because the relative pronoun is the subject of the adjective clause. So what is the rule? If the adjective clause has already a subject, like in this case, or like in this case, it is possible to omit the relative pronoun, okay? Whether you're talking about people or things. But if the relative pronoun is the subject of the adjective clause, then you cannot omit it. And you have to say, I have a friend that loves to talk. I have a friend who loves to talk. As you have seen, adjective clauses are very interesting, but we haven't finished. There are more things to do. Let us make a pause. We will stop here and we will continue talking about adjective clauses in our next video. See you later.